or maybe not. Okay. Well, with my internet problems today with the snow, I was starting to get worried there. Hi, welcome. Welcome to Uncork Your Mind. And today I have a glass of wine because I just shoveled 18 inches of snow and I have not had a heart attack yet. I better knock on wood. So I hope everybody here is, if you're listening or whatever, has a nice glass of wine. And I'm really excited to welcome Danielle Frank. She is the author of A Wine Lover's Guide to Parenting, The Fine Art of Wine and Whining Management. Now, this book, I have to tell you, after spending just one day with my son in Arizona when we having a family vacation, I thought it was great when I was reading it on the drive back to the East Coast. It's clever, bold, laughing out loud. I want to immediately buy this book for him and send it to him and his wife. I don't quite know how my daughter-in-law will take that, but I want to welcome Danielle. And before we dive into everything, Danielle, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what prompted you to write the book?
Well, first off, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on here with you today on your great show. What prompted the book? I've always written. I've always been good at rhyming, and I always use, writing just on the side as like a creative outlet for me. And, I work in the wine and spirits industry. So coupled with all these things, I wrote this about 13 years ago. I was engaged to be married, and my fiance has kids from a previous marriage. So I was a bonus mom for many, many years. And ultimately, I realized he didn't want to have more kids. So I broke off the engagement. And, so some of it was sort of therapy for me to create this sort of, when faced with the potential that the path to motherhood wasn't going to be happening for me, I realized that, it doesn't mean the end of nurturing. And how can I nurture and foster my, that creative outlet? And how can I put that into something that could be meaningful and into, in this world of motherhood? At the same time, I was watching my niece and nephew, and they were young kids then, they're adults now. And even though they were great kids, of course, every child has the propensity to whine. So I was watching them and they were whining about something. And I said, Aunt Danielle drinks wine. She doesn't listen to wine. So all pieces of the puzzle started to come together there. I've worked in the wine and spirits industry for over 20 years now. I'm dating myself. Spoiler alert, I'm not 21. I'm older. But yeah, all these things kind of came together as, I started thinking about, I don't drink wine, or I don't listen to wine, I drink wine. I was like, there's so many fun parallels to how you can talk about wine and teach about wine and relate it to raising kids. And, when you talk about raising kids, it's really just about human behavior, being kind, having manners, not being a bully. So it all just started to come together.
So when was the aha moment for you when you thought parenting and wine and winemaking?
I mean, that started it, right? And then I just started thinking like, a lot of it is relating words, like the word ferment. That's the process of turning sugar into alcohol in wine, in the wine production phase. And so I was thinking, sugar is something sweet, alcohol is something harsh. You don't want your kids turning into something sweet, into something harsh and being a bully. So I just started to think of parallels like that. And then there are some just play on word chapters, right? Like a decanter. You can't, decant, let them run you. Don't let your kids run all over you. So I started just to think about all the, key wine terminology. Of course, I was thinking about things that rhyme well, right? You won't find the word oenology in my book anywhere because that doesn't really rhyme well with anything. I was thinking about good rhyming words, but also things that people would want to know about, because every time I use wine terminology, I give the definition. So yeah, I started just thinking about, look, what's this word? How can it relate to human behavior. And then on the flip side, what human behavior do I want to teach, and how can I, whether it's parallel it to a wine term or even just rhyme it, with, a word like Bordeaux or Chablis or something like that, just where it can have a fun play on words.
So how did you decide what wine concepts to match with each parenting lesson?
Yeah, again, some of the wine terminology spoke to me immediately of like paralleling human behavior, like the fermenting, right? Turning sugar into alcohol. And then some of those were just, and like corked. Is your kid corked? We know a corked wine. Well, corked wine is a bad wine. Now that chapter is that's the final chapter, just tongue in cheek, and said, "Is your kid corked?" I'm just kidding. There's, everybody has the propensity to be good. So, there were terms like that you could just relate to wine terminology and human behavior. And then others just, again, play on words like to can't let them run you, or is your kid a mulled wine? So mulled wine, like this is more of like, I was thinking about mulled, right? Mulled wines are served heated and they're spiced. You add spice to them like clove and a star anise and cinnamon. So it's spiced, it's heated, it's often served as a punch. Well, thinking about human behavior, is your kid spiced heated? Are they packing a punch when they're at school? Is your kid a bully? So there were some things that like really just became very clear on how you can parallel the actual term with the human behavior.
And in lesson 1, which I was reading to my husband on our wonderful drive from Arizona to New Jersey, it says, I drink wine. I don't listen to wine. Why do you think whining is such a pivotal parenting battleground? Because I had an issue with my granddaughter and I just kind of laughed at her and I said, this isn't going to work with grandma. So.
Well, this is why this is lesson 1. I think everybody can agree. I mean, again, I don't need to be a parent. I'm on enough airplanes and I'm around enough kids and around friends' kids that like, nobody wants to hear anybody whining. I don't want to hear an adult whining. It's, it's not pleasant. It's not enjoyable. It's not, So, but of course kids do it, and again, that's what spurred on the first chapter. It's what spurred the book on. It's kids do it. And when you let them whine to get their way, they're going to keep doing it. So this was lesson number 1 for me. Don't let them whine. You got to nip that in the bud, because if you keep letting them whine, they're going to keep doing that. And it's that's rule number 1.
And then in lesson number 2, you talked about kids needing space, kind of like how the wine needs to breathe. Why is independence like such a key theme for you?
So this, comes from personal knowledge and from some people around me. So one, I see the way my parents raised me. I didn't have I had a long leash. My parents were divorced from an early age, 1 year old. Both of them, when I was with both my mom or at my dad's, they just had a lot of trust in me, and they gave me a lot of confidence. Of my friends, I didn't have a curfew. I couldn't think of the word. I didn't have a curfew. I just noticed like my friends who had strict curfews or were really strict, those were the ones that rebelled the most. I had nothing to rebel against. It's like, well, I would go home. I don't need to stay out and push the limits, or, I was probably like the last one to drink, even though I'm, a wine lover now. I was like probably the last one to push the buttons, because I didn't feel that, need that a lot of kids feel, that, it's like when something's taboo, then you really gravitate towards it more. So, I had so much room to breathe, and, and I think that really helped develop me, just like a wine, into being an independent, responsible person. And then I see it with some of my, the friends and, my sister and the people around me. Most notably my friend Micah and Nancy, like the way they raised their kid, Hudson, he's 12 years old going on like 40. But he's such a well-grounded kid. And I see it's because they really, she's obviously a protective mom, but not overprotective. She gives him, the space that he needs to grow without coddling. And it's made him into such an unbelievable kid. I mean, they came over my Thanksgiving. I host for all the orphans left in town here in Cali, since I don't go back east, once it hits winter anymore. And all my friends, I mean, they always talk about how great Hudson is. He's such a well-rounded, adjusted kid, and he's able to have conversations with adults. That I took him to an escape room over Christmas break, and like 3 of my friends were like, we want to come, we want to hang out with Hudson, and we want to do this. Yeah, it's like, it's such a testament to them letting him breathe and just find his own way while giving him, guidance along the way.
I agree with that. That's kind of like how I was raised as well, So you talk about in the chapter, don't let them ferment. And it ties it into avoid, manners and avoiding. Do you think modern parenting has softened too much on etiquette?
Oh, I mean, I do. Again, who am I to say? I'm just an outsider perspective, but I think also an outsider perspective gives a fresh take on it. I see what's, we have a fresh lens and a front seat to what's going on. I don't know. I mean, maybe social media has contributed to this, but we talked about this before. Like, I was like 6 years old walking to first grade by myself. And like, we'd be riding our bikes with our friends till, we knew it was supper time. I think just, I don't know if it's just the combination of, people being sheltered and, obviously the world's a different place now, but, I don't know. Kids are definitely a different breed than when we were growing up.
No, I agree with you. And I can remember with my kids who are 31 and 33, going over to my mother's house to drop them off because I need to go somewhere. And I was one to go out to play, but my mom's neighborhood, the neighborhood I grew up in, was like quiet. You could hear a pin drop. And this is really before social media and cell phones. Maybe it was just the beginning of it. And I'm like, where is everybody?
Yeah.
I kind of feel, and then, I raise my kids and, I see how, what my son is doing. My daughter doesn't have kids, but, and I'm just like, wow, like, you got to let them think for themselves. You got to, but whatever. Not my kid.
And it's like, I don't know. We were just, and again, it doesn't mean every kid's like this, right? I see a lot of great kids with great manners and oh man, do I love that. But it just seems like it's fewer and far between.
Yes. And then, this leads into kind of like the boundaries. In lesson 6, you talk about you can't, don't let them run you. Like I see a lot of parents now, which, the kids dictate. And I kind of saw that with my granddaughter when we were in Arizona, that, she dictated what they were doing. And I'm like, no, you're going to eat at 7 o'clock at night. We're going to eat at 7 o'clock at night. And, I'm like, all right, they didn't come to dinner with us, but is it really about boundaries and authorities?
Yeah. I mean, that's why you can't let them run you. Because that's, as we see this shift in, kids today running amok to their parents. I hate seeing kids talk fresh. And again, when I was younger, it's like, if I spoke out of line, my dad would pretend to loosen the belt, or I've had a bar of soap stuck in my mouth. I think, especially these days, parents are probably a little, more gun shy about disciplining their kids. And I don't know, that's why this book is also written like a children's book. It's meant to be when your kid's born. It's a lighthearted, it's a great baby shower gift, right?
Yes.
It's for the new parent. It's for, because the whole messaging here is, and again, this is partly like, because I'm not a mom, it was my contribution to try and help steer people to raise good humans. So it's all about learning these things when they're very young, because that's when they're most impressionable. So trying to just put that, little seed in parents' minds, like, don't let them run you. Otherwise, this is how it's going to be long term. If I could just instill that sort of, lesson, early on, then hopefully it makes parenting a little easier for them along the way.
Yeah, I like that. Like if you're giving them everything, what happens when they're 17 and they want a car? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, you might be giving into like a little Matchbox car. I don't even know if they make Matchbox cars anymore.
They
But
do. My granddaughters also make
yeah, like you might be giving into them, but like that's that constant, I mean, I see it with my niece and nephew and my niece. It's constant, like, asking for stuff, and they've just said yes to everything. They don't stop.
Yep, yep. So now I want to get into the book. Can you have a copy of it with you? Can you show
Yes.
people the cover? Because I love it. It was
Oh, thank you.
I really I enjoyed this book.
Oh,
It
I'm
just
so
had
glad
me
you did.
laughing, and it was just so much, and people, the my kids that are raising kids, are raising them so different than how I raised them and how I was raised.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
that's the goal with
so
this. It's universal behavior, right? It's
yeah.
universally teach your kid manners. It's universal to
Mhm.
like, so even though we've all these generations are raising people differently, the messaging is meant to be the same. Like no matter what, year over year, you don't want your kid to be a bully. You don't want your
Exactly.
kids to have bad manners. You don't want your kids to run all over you. So yeah, it's can I share? Can I read a
Yes, I was
chapter?
just going to ask you to read a
Yeah.
chapter or two. I mean, I love the book. I think people,
Oh, thank you.
and I think it's great. Like you said, baby shower book.
Yeah, gift that with a little onesie, done.
Yep.
So lesson 3, you don't want your kids to ferment. This is where I said, the fermentation process is turning sugar into alcohol. So you think of sugar sweet, alcohol is harsh and biting. So you don't want your kids to be harsh and biting. So manners, manners, manners are the key to it all. These lessons need to start even when they're small. Teach them this from day one before they start to crawl. You don't want your kid to be the sour grape in the bunch and turn into a spoiled brat that kids want to punch. When they start talking, make sure they know thank you and please, and to always say bless you when they hear someone sneeze. Please and thank you are an absolute must. Without that, your child's a total bust. There's nothing worse than a child who has behavior that is crude, because it'll continue as they're older and become someone who's rude. People don't take kindly to and aren't nice to those with attitude, because it's very off-putting and puts others in a bad mood, oftentimes causing confrontation and leads to a nasty feud. Wanting to put a little bit of poison in your child's food. Is that really how you want your kids to be viewed? Wouldn't you prefer that there's someone who's wooed? Without manners, they'll ferment and turn into someone harsh and biting. They may turn into a kid who's rude, obnoxious, and always fighting. So teach your kids some manners and to have some heart and soul. Without that, your kid may well turn into an a-hole.
I think that's great. And it's kind of, kind of explaining you want your kid to be liked and,
Yeah. Yeah.
all around. I want to go also into like each chapter you have a couple of, wine terminology, and you explain the terminology at the bottom of the page. So how should somebody say, that's getting this book gifted to them and they don't know as much about wine, and how would you suggest that they read the chapter? Should they read the definition of the wines before they go and read the chapter, or read the chapter and then the definitions of the terminology that is in that chapter?
I mean, one, yes, I use, every time I use the term in the chapter, the definition is all on the left-hand side at the bottom. So that was the other goal with this book as well, is someone who's worked in the wine and spirits industry for so long. I love teaching people about wine in an approachable way, right? I mean, working in the wine industry, it doesn't mean, we're the sole experts. When I go to dinner with friends and the wine list comes and they just pass it to me, it's like, no, I'm not, just because I work in the industry, wine is meant to be fun and enjoyed by everybody. And it's subjective too. What I like, you may not like, and vice versa. So I love the idea of educating people in a fun, easy way about wine and wine terminology. I mean, I think, it's fun to, you could just read the chapter through and, and then read the definitions and then read it again. Some of them, it's just rhyming, right? Ensure your child is soft, even bodied like a Merlot. not rough and tough that others want to deal them a nasty blow. So, there it's just using the Merlot term, but, then you can look at so it's not necessary to know the style of Merlot. And it's, it's fun to just do it both ways. Read the definition, then read the chapter, then read the definition again. And at the end of the book, there's a basic understanding of how wine is made. So it's great for anybody that just wants to understand how wine is made.
Yeah, I think it gives a good basic understanding of wine as from an educational standpoint too, that people will understand wine a little bit better.
Yeah.
What they're pulling off the shelf in the liquor store to bring home or to girls' night or what have you. So here's each stage of parenting. If there was a wine to go with each stage, what wine would go with toddlers, teenagers, and empty nesters?
Okay. Toddlers, I mean, break out the bubbly, right? You just birthed, you just birthed a baby, and well, I don't know. I'd say obviously you just birthed the baby, pop some bubbles, but then you might have to go straight to a bold Cabernet because you've got a long journey ahead of you. You've embarked on a bold and powerful, mission of the next 18 plus years of your life. So buckle up. I would say, what was the next one?
Teenagers.
Teenagers. Oh boy. That is something that, requires patience. So I was something that's long and aged. There again could be a cab, but that might be better as the cab because a cab has, it takes years to rest and age. And yeah, I think now I'm using cab again. Let's go to the next one. What's that?
Okay, empty nesters.
Empty nesters. Well, then you should go back to the bubbly. Congratulations. Or just a nice, I love a good Chablis, white, light. It feels a weight has been lifted off of you. The kids are out of the house.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we're coming to, I don't want to keep you all day because you still have your day ahead of you. I've got my evening ahead of me. So the book has been great. I want to, before I wrap it up, any parent that's listening tonight or today, whenever you may be listening to this or watching it, pour yourself a glass and what would you want them to think about as they take their first sip?
I want them to think about, this is made with love and light, and it's okay to just have a little laughter through, I don't want to say through the pain, it's such a joy to raise kids, but sometimes you need to not take yourself so seriously. And, with wine and raising kids, there's a lot of similarities, but, one requires a corkscrew, the other requires patience, but both can stain your carpet. So you might as well laugh along the way. You might as well enjoy a beautiful glass along the way. It's just, it's an homage to everybody out there, seen through different lens of humor and appreciation and appreciate the humor in it and let yourself enjoy and laugh.
You have to, because I laughed throughout the whole book.
Oh,
and I liked the different lessons as well. And the pairings of the terminology. It was really good. How can somebody purchase this book and how can they find you?
So they can purchase it online on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. And if you want to find me, I have a website, DanielleFrankAuthor.com, as well as on Instagram at Create a Great Story.
Thank you so much. Like I said, I love the book. I could relate to the book. And the one thing when I was raising my kids, I said, as far as wine goes, I never drank until 5 o'clock. No matter how hard my day was, with work, with the kids, what have you, it was always 5 o'clock. And if I was the only one home at 5 o'clock, I'd call another friend that was a parent. We'd open our wine together and we would have a glass.
I love that.
So,
As you should. Deserve it. You deserve it. And, whatever gets you through, whether it's parenthood or whether it gets you through the moment in life that you need it for, it's meant to be enjoyed. Thank you so much for having me on your fabulous podcast. I've enjoyed this.
Thank you. And I'm going to be ordering that book.
Oh, thank you.
For my son. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.